The first story today is none other than Cinderella. Okay. The wife of a rich man fell sick, and as she felt... Wait, where's my book? Here we go again. Starting without my book. Oh, goodness. Okay, here we go. The wife of a rich man fell sick, and as she felt that her end was drawing near, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, "Dear child, be good and pious, and then the good God will always protect you, and I will look down on you from heaven and be near you." Then she closed her eyes and departed. Every day the maiden went out to her mother's grave and wept, and she remained pious and good. I actually don't know if it's pronounced pious. When winter came, the snow spread a white sheet over the grave, and when the spring sun had drawn it off again, the man had taken another wife. The woman had brought two daughters into the house with her, who were beautiful and fair of face, but vile and black of heart. Now began a bad time for the poor stepchild. "Is the stupid goose to sit in the parlour with us?" said they. "He who wants to eat bread must earn it. Out with the kitchen wench." They took her pretty clothes away from her, put an old grey bedgown on her, and gave her wooden shoes. "Just look at the proud princess, how decked out she is," they cried, and laughed, and led her into the kitchen. There she had to do hard work from morning till night, get up before daybreak, carry water, light fires, cook and wash. Besides this, the sisters did her every imaginable injury. They mocked her and emptied her peas and lentils into the ashes, so that she was forced to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, when she had worked till she was weary, she had no bed to go to, but had to sleep by the fireside in the ashes. And since on that account she always looked dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella. It happened that the father was once going to the fair, and he asked his two stepdaughters what he should bring back for them. "Beautiful dresses," said one. "Pearls and jewels," said the second. "And you, Cinderella," said he, "what will you have?" "Father, break off for me the first branch which knocks against your hat on your way home." So he bought beautiful dresses, pearls and jewels for his two stepdaughters, and on his way home, as he was riding through a green thicket, a hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his hat. Then he broke off the branch and took it with him. When he reached home, he gave his stepdaughters the things that they had wished for, and to Cinderella he gave the branch from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave, and planted the branch on it, and wept so much that the tears fell down on it and watered it. And it grew, however, and became a handsome tree. Thrice a day Cinderella went and sat beneath it, and wept and prayed, and the little white bird always came on the tree, and if Cinderella expressed a wish, the bird threw down to her what she had wished for. It happened, however, that the king appointed a festival which was to last 3 days, and to which all the beautiful young girls in the country were invited, and in order that his son might choose himself a bride. When the two stepsisters heard that they too were to appear among the number, they were delighted, called Cinderella and said, "Comb our hair for us, brush our shoes and fasten our buckles, for we are going to the festival at the king's palace." Cinderella obeyed, but wept, because she too would have liked to go with them to the dance, and begged her stepmother to allow her to do so. "You go, Cinderella," said she. "You are dusty and dirty and would go to the festival? You have no clothes and shoes, and yet would dance." As, however, Cinderella went on asking, the stepmother at last said, I have emptied a dish of lentils into the ashes for you. If you have picked them out again in 2 hours, you shall go with us. The maiden went through the back door into the garden and called, You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds beneath the sky, come and help to pick the good into the pot, the bad into the crop. The 2 white pigeons came in by the kitchen window, and afterwards the turtle doves, and at last the birds beneath the sky, came whirring and crowding in, and alighted amongst the ashes. And the pigeons nodded with their heads and began, Pick, 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 and the rest began also, Pick, 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 and gathered all the good grains into the dish. Hardly 1 hour had passed before they had finished, and all flew out again. Then the girl took the dish to her stepmother and was glad, and believed that now she would be allowed to go with them to the festival. But the stepmother said, No, Cinderella, you have no clothes, and you cannot dance. You would only be laughed at. And as Cinderella wept at this, the stepmother said, If you can pick 2 dishes of lentils out of the ashes for me in 1 hour, you shall go with us. And she thought to herself, That she most certainly cannot do. When the stepmother had emptied the 2 dishes of lentils amongst the ashes, the maiden went through the back door into the garden and cried, You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds unto heaven, come and help to pick the good into the pot, the bad into the crop. Then 2 white pigeons came in by the kitchen window, and afterwards the turtle doves, and at length all the birds beneath the sky came whirring and crowding in, and alighted amongst the ashes. And the doves nodded with their heads and began, Pick, 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 and the others began also, Pick, 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 and gathered all the good seeds into the dishes, and before half an hour was over, they had already finished, and all flew out again. Then the maiden carried the dishes to the stepmother, and was delighted, and believed that she might now go with them to the festival. But the stepmother said, All this would not help you. You cannot go with us, for you have no clothes and cannot dance. We should be ashamed of you. With this, she turned her back on Cinderella and hurried away with her 2 proud daughters. As no one was now at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree and cried, Shiver and quiver, little tree, silver and gold throw down over me. Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress on her, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver. She put on the dress with all speed and went to the festival. Her stepsisters and stepmother, however, did not know her, and thought she must be a foreign princess, for she looked so beautiful in the golden dress. They never once thought of Cinderella, and believed she was sitting at home in the dirt, picking lentils out of the ashes. The prince went to meet her, took her by the hand, and danced with her. He would dance with no other maiden, and never let go of her hand. And if anyone else came to invite her, he said, This is my partner. She danced till it was evening, and then she wanted to go home. But the king's son said, I will go with you and bear you company. For he wished to see to whom the beautiful maiden belonged. She escaped him, however, and sprang into the pigeon house. The king's son waited until her father came, and then he told him that the strange maiden had leapt into the pigeon house. The old man thought, Can it be Cinderella? And they had to bring him an axe and a pickaxe that he might hew the pigeon house to pieces, but no one was inside it. And when they got home, Cinderella lay in her dirty clothes among the ashes, and a dim little oil lamp was burning on the mantelpiece, for Cinderella had jumped quickly down from the back of the pigeon house and had run to the little hazel tree, and there she had taken off her beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again, and she had placed herself in the kitchen amongst the ashes in her grey gown. The next day, when the festival began afresh, and her parents and the stepsisters had gone once more, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, silver and gold throw down over me." Then the bird threw down a much more beautiful dress than on the preceding day, and when Cinderella appeared at the festival in this dress, everyone was astonished by her beauty. The king's son had waited until she came, and instantly took her by the hand and danced with no one but her. When others came and invited her, he said, "She is my partner." When evening came, she wished to leave, and the king's son followed her and wanted to see into which house she went. But she sprang away from him and into the garden behind the house. There stood a beautiful tall tree on which hung the most magnificent pears. She clambered so nimbly between the branches like a squirrel that the king's son did not know where she had gone. He waited until her father came and said to him, "The strange maiden has escaped from me, and I believe she has climbed up the pear tree." The father thought, "Can it be Cinderella?" and had brought and cut the tree down, but no one was on it. And when they got into the kitchen, Cinderella lay there amongst the ashes as usual, for she had jumped down on the other side of the tree, and had taken the beautiful dress of the bird and the little hazel tree, and put on her grey gown. On the third day, when the parents and sisters had gone away, Cinderella went once more to her mother's grave, and said to the little tree, "Shiver and quiver, my little tree, silver and gold throw down over me." And now the bird threw down to her a dress which was more splendid and magnificent than any she had yet had, and the slippers were golden. And when she went to the festival in this dress, no one knew how to speak for astonishment. The king's son danced with her only, and if anyone invited her to dance, she said, "She is my partner." When evening came, Cinderella wished to leave, and the king's son was anxious to go with her, but she had escaped him so quickly that he could not follow her. The king's son had, however, used a stratagem, and had caused the whole staircase to be smeared with pitch, and there, when she ran down, had the maiden's left slipper which remained sticking. The king's son picked it up, and it was small and dainty and all golden. Next morning he brought it to the father and said to him, "No one shall be my wife, but she whose foot fits this golden slipper." Then the two sisters were glad, for they had pretty feet. The eldest went with the shoe into her room and wanted to try it on, and her mother stood by, but she could not get her big toe into it, and the shoe was too small for her. Then her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut the toe off. When you are queen, you will have no more need to go on foot." The maiden cut the toe off and forced the foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the king's son. Then he took her on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. They were, however, obliged to pass the grave, and there on the hazel tree sat the two pigeons and cried, turn and peep, there's blood within the shoe. The shoe is too small for her, the true bride waits for you." Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was streaming from it. He turned his horse round and and took the false bride home again, and said she was not the true one, and that the other sister was to put the shoe on. This one went to her chamber and got her toes safely into the shoe, but her heel was too large. So her mother gave her a knife and said, "Cut a bit off your heel." When you are queen, you will have no more need to go on foot." The maiden cut a bit off her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, swallowed the pain, and went out to the king's son. Oh, did we get raided? Oh, hello. Oh, thank you for the raid, Strawberry, Stardust, and Sephiridis. May I ask how you happened to pass by my stream? Or, do you know me from somewhere? You were streaming together. Oh my, what were you streaming? Let me scroll up. Oh, you were art and just chatting. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, that's lovely. I have no idea how some people find me, and I really appreciate that you decided to rate me. Thank you so much. Oh, while you're here, I have a Twitter account, and what I do is at the end of the month, I do a shout out to the people who have raided. What I ask is if you have a picture that you would like me to use, could you please send it my way? You can always just add me on Twitter or just, I don't know, show me a picture that you would like me to use. It's just a way for me to thank you for choosing me to raid. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the follow, TC and Strawberry and Viridis. I hope I said everyone's names correctly. Oh, Figma! Figma's really nice. I use it for my stream schedules, so it's really good. Yeah. If you could just, I don't know if it's like a link or if you want to get connected in socials, it's completely up to you. Otherwise, what I do is I go into your channel and I just pick a photo, if that's okay with you. Oh, okay. So I'm just trying to remember where I was. Yes, absolutely. Whatever is easiest for you. Happy to accommodate. If it's okay, I'll just get back to reading, because I only stream for an hour for book reading, so everyone can sleep. Okay, where was I? Oh yes, if you need to go, yes, please, you don't feel obliged to stay. I'm already so happy that you gave me a chance. Thank you so much. Okay, right. He took her on his horse as his bride and rode away with her. But when they passed by the hazel tree, 2 little pigeons sat on it and cried, turn and peep, there's blood within the shoe. The shoe is too small for her. The true bride waits for you." He looked down at her foot and saw how the blood was running out of her shoe, and how it had stained her white stocking. Then he turned his horse and took the false bride home again. "This is not the right one," said he. "Have you no other daughter?" "No," said the man, "but there is still a little stunted kitchen wench which my late wife left behind, but she cannot possibly be the bride." The king's son said he was to send her up to him, but the mother answered, "Oh no, she is much too dirty. She cannot show herself." He absolutely insisted on it, and Cinderella had to be called. She first washed her hands and face clean, and then went down and bowed before the king's son, who gave her the golden shoe. Then she seated herself on a stool, drew her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe, and put it in the slipper, which fit like a glove. And when she rose up and the king's son looked at her face, he recognized the beautiful maiden who had danced with him and cried, "That is the true bride." The stepmother and the two sisters were terrified and became pale with rage. He, however, took Cinderella on his horse and rode away with her. As they passed the hazel tree, the two white doves cried, turn and peep, no blood is in the shoe. The shoe is not too small for her. The true bride rides with you." And when they had cried that, the two came flying down and placed themselves on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right and the other on the left, and remained sitting there. When the wedding with the king's son was celebrated, the two false sisters came and wanted to get into favour with Cinderella and share her good fortune. When the betrothed couple went to church, the elder was at the right side and the younger at the left, and the pigeons pecked out one eye of each of them. Afterwards, as they came back, the elder was at the left and the younger at the right, and then the pigeons pecked out the other eye of each. And thus, for their wickedness and falsehood, they were punished with blindness as long as they lived. Oh, goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry. Please ignore the bot. I don't know why it does that. We need to change some of the messaging on the Nightbot because that's just default. I'm not sure how to fix it. Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. Mimi, are you able to open those links and download the pictures for me, please, and send it to me later? Thank you for the follow. Peace. One piece is peace. That's cute. And that was the end of Cinderella. That's definitely a lot more gruesome than the original. This whole time I thought there was a fairy godmother, but the original never had one. It's interesting. And you know, I think it's kind of crazy that the two sisters, they really got their eye pecked out and they decided to just stay there. Like, I don't understand. Oh gosh, that's scary. Thank you, Mimi. Really appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry if I missed anyone who said hello. You know what? I'll scroll down and see who if I missed. Hello, Brett. Hello, Jacko. Hello, Dante. Hello, Markia. Hello, Exu. I think I'll say thank you, Exu and Trout, for your resubscription, my friends. Okay. The next story is called The Riddle. There was once a king's son who was seized with a desire to travel about the world and took no one with him but a faithful servant. One day he came to a great forest, and when darkness overtook him, he could find no shelter and knew not where to pass the night. Then he saw a girl who was going towards a small house, and when he came nearer, he saw that the maiden was young and beautiful. He spoke to her and said, "Dear child, can I and my servant find shelter for the night in the little house?" "Oh yes," said the girl in a sad voice. "That you certainly can, but I do not advise you to venture it. Do not go in." "Why not?" asked the king's son. The maiden sighed and said, "My stepmother practices wicked arts. She is ill-disposed towards strangers." Then he saw very well that he had come to the house of a witch, but as it was dark and he could not go farther, and was also not afraid, he entered. The old woman was sitting in an armchair by the fire and looked at the stranger with her red eyes. "Good evening," growled she, and pretended to be quite friendly. "Take a seat and rest yourselves." She blew up the fire on which she was cooking something in a small pot. The daughter warned the two to be prudent, to eat nothing and drink nothing, for the old woman brewed evil drinks. They slept quietly until early morning. When they were readying for their departure, the king's son was already seated on his horse. The old woman said, Stop a moment. I will first hand you a parting draught. What's that? While she fetched it, the king's son rode away, and the servant, who had to buckle his saddle tight, was the only one present when the wicked witch came with the drink. "Take that to your master," said she. But at that instant the glass broke, and the poison spurted on the horse, and it was so strong that the animal immediately fell down dead. The servant ran after his master and told him what had happened, but he would not leave his saddle behind him, and ran back to fetch it. When, however, he came to the dead horse, a raven was already sitting on it, devouring it. "Who knows whether we shall find anything better today?" said the servant. So he killed the raven and took it with him. And now they journeyed onwards into the forest the whole day, but could not get out of it. By nightfall they found an inn and entered it. The servant gave the raven to the innkeeper to make ready for supper. They had, however, stumbled on a den of murderers, and during the darkness 12 of these came, intending to kill the strangers and rob them. Before they set about this work, they sat down to supper, and the innkeeper and the witch sat down with them, and together they ate a dish of soup in which was cut up the flesh of the raven. Hardly, however, had they swallowed a couple of mouthfuls before they all fell down dead, for the raven had passed on to them the poison from the horse flesh. There was no one else left in the house but the innkeeper's daughter, who was honest and had taken no part in their godless deeds. She opened all doors to the stranger and showed him the heaped-up treasures, but the king's son said she might keep everything. He would have none of it, and rode onwards with his servant. After they had travelled about for a long time, they came to a town in which was a beautiful but proud princess who had caused it to be proclaimed that whoever set her a riddle which she could not guess, that man should be her husband. But if she had guessed it, his head must be cut off. That's intense. She had 3 days to guess it in, but was so clever that she always found the answer to the riddle given to her before the appointed time. 9 suitors had already perished in this manner. When the king's son arrived, and blinded by her great beauty, was willing was willing to stake his life for it. Then he went to her and laid his riddle before her. "What is this?" said he. "One slew none, and yet slew 12. She did not know what that was. She thought and thought, but she could not find out. She opened her riddle books, but it was not in them. In short, her wisdom was at an end. As she did not know how to help herself, she ordered her maid to creep into the Lord's sleeping chamber and listen to his dreams, and thought that he would perhaps speak in his sleep and discover the riddle. But the clever servant had placed himself in the bed instead of his master, and when the maid came there, he tore off from her the mantle in which she had wrapped herself and chased her out with rods. Goodness. The second night, the king's daughter sent her maid-in-waiting, who was to see if she could succeed better in listening. But the servant took her mantle also away from her and hunted her out with rods. Excuse me. Now the master believed himself safe for the 3rd night and lay down in his own bed. Then came the princess herself, and she had put on a misty grey mantle, and she seated herself near him. And when she thought that he was asleep and dreaming, she spoke to him and hoped that he would answer in his sleep, as many do. But he was awake and understood and heard everything quite well. Then she asked, "One slew none, what is that?" He replied, "A raven which ate of a dead and poisoned horse and died of it." She inquired further, and yet slew 12. What is that?" He answered, "That means 12 murderers who ate the raven and died of it." When she knew the answer to the riddle, she wanted to steal away, but he held her mantle so fast that she was forced to leave it behind. The next morning, the king's daughter announced that she had guessed the riddle, and sent for the 12 judges and expounded it before them. But the youth begged for a hearing and said, "She stole into my room in the night and questioned me. Otherwise, she could not have discovered it." The judges said, "Bring us a proof of this." Then the 3 mantles were brought by the servant, and when the judges saw the misty grey one which the king's daughter usually wore, they said, "Let the mantle be embroidered with gold and silver, and then it will be your wedding mantle." That was weird. Was that really much of a riddle? I don't know about it. Hello, Anson, and hello, Lord. Did I miss anyone else? No, I don't think I did. Yes, that was quite a short story. Oh, this one's a very short story. It's only a page and a little bit. Okay. Hold on, I'll just get a drink of water really quickly. Hello, Infinite. Okay. This story is called The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage. Once upon a time, a mouse, a bird, and a sausage became companions, kept house together, lived well and happily with each other, and wonderfully increased their possessions. The bird's work was to fly every day into the forest and bring back wood. The mouse had to carry water, light the fire, and lay the table, but the sausage had to cook. He who is too well off is always longing for something new. One day, therefore, the bird met with another bird on the way, to whom it related its excellent circumstances and boasted of them. The other bird, however, called it a simpleton for his hard work, but said that the 2 at home had good times. For when the mouse had made her fire and carried her water, she went into her little room to rest until they called her to lay the table. The sausage stayed by the pot, saw that the food was cooking well, and when it was nearly time for dinner, it rolled itself once or twice through the broth or vegetables, and when they were buttered, salted, and ready. When the bird came home and laid his burden down, they sat down to dinner, and after they had their meal, they slept their fill till next morning, and that was a splendid life. The next day the bird, prompted by the other bird, would go no more into the wood, saying that he had been servant long enough, and had been made a fool of by then, and that they must change about for once, and try to arrange it in another way. And, though the mouse and the sausage also begged most earnestly, the bird would have his way, and said it must be tried. They drew lots about it, and the lot fell on the sausage, who was to carry wood, and the mouse became cook, and the bird was to fetch water. What happened? The little sausage went out toward the wood, the little bird lighted the fire, and the mouse stayed by the pot and waited alone until little sausage came home and brought wood for next day. But the little sausage stayed so long on the road that they both feared something was amiss, and the bird flew out a little way into the air to meet it. Not far off, however, it met a dog on the road who had fallen on the poor sausage as lawful booty, and had seized and swallowed it. The bird charged the dog with an act of bare-faced robbery, but it was in vain to speak, for the dog said he had found forged letters on the sausage, a capital offence. The bird sadly took up the wood, flew home, and related what he had seen and heard. They were much troubled, but agreed to do their best and remain together. The bird therefore laid the cloth, the mouse prepared the food and wanted to dress it, and to get into the pot as the sausage used to do, and roll and creep amongst the vegetables to mix them. But before she got into the midst of them, she was stopped, and lost her skin and hair and life in the attempt. That escalated quickly. When the bird came up to carry the dinner, no cook was there. In its distress, the bird threw the wood here and there, called and searched, but no cook was to be found. Owing to his carelessness, the wood caught fire, so that a conflagration ensued, and the bird hastened to fetch water, and then the bucket dropped from his claws into the well, and he fell down with it, and could not recover himself, but had to drown there. That was it. That's the end of the story. That was so tragic. No. Oh, gosh. They all died. Such as the mouse and the bird. That's not a very nice story. Okay, well. Okay. Mother, how do I say this name? Holle. Is that a German name? I don't know. There was once a widow who had 2 daughters, one of whom was pretty and industrious, while the other was ugly and idle. But she was much fonder of the ugly and idle one, because she was her own daughter, and the other, who was a stepdaughter, was obliged to do all the work and be the Cinderella of the house. Every day the poor girl had to sit by a well on the roadside and spin till her fingers bled. Now it happened that one day the shuttle was marked with her blood, so she dipped it in the well to wash the mark off, but it dropped out of her hand and fell to the bottom. She began to weep and ran to her stepmother and told her of the mishap. But she scolded her sharply and was so merciless as to say, "Since you have let the shuttle fall in, you must fetch it out again." So the girl went back to the well and did not know what to do, and in the sorrow of her heart, she jumped into the well to get the shuttle. She lost her senses, and when she awoke and came to herself again, she was in a lovely meadow where the sun was shining and many thousands of flowers were growing. Along this meadow she went, and at last to a baker's oven full of bread, and the bread cried out, "Oh, take me out, or I shall burn. I have been baked a long time." So she went up to it, and took all the loaves one after the other with the bread shovel. After that she went on till she came to a tree covered with apples, which called out to her, "Oh, shake me, we apples are all ripe." So she shook the tree till the apples fell like rain, and went on shaking till they were all down. And when she had gathered them into a heap, she went on her way. At last she came to a little house, out of which an old woman peeped, but she had such large teeth that the girl was frightened and was about to run away. But the old woman called out to her, "What are you afraid of, dear child? Stay with me. If you will do all the work in this house properly, you shall be the better for it. Only you must take care to make my bed well, and shake it thoroughly till the feathers fly, for then it will snow on the earth. I am Mother Holle." I don't know how to pronounce this. And the old woman spoke so kindly to her, the girl took courage and agreed to enter her service. She attended to everything to the satisfaction of her mistress, and always shook her bed so vigorously that the feathers flew about like snowflakes. So she had a pleasant life with her, never an angry word, and boiled or roast meat every day. She stayed with the mother, and then she became sad. At first she did not know what was the matter with her, but found at length that it was homesickness. Although she was many thousand times better off here than at home, she still had a longing to be there. At last she said to the old woman, "I have a longing for home, and however well off I am down there, I cannot stay any longer. I must go up again to my own people." And the mother said, "I am pleased that you long for your home again, and as you have served me so truly, I myself will take you up again." Then she took her by the hand and led her to a door. The door was opened, and just as the maiden was standing beneath the doorway, a heavy shower of golden rain fell, and all the gold stuck to her so that she was completely covered with it. "You shall have that because you have been so industrious," said Mother. And at the same time, she gave her back the shuttle which she had let from there. Oh goodness, which she had let fall into the well. Why was that so hard to say? Thereupon the door closed, and the maiden found herself up upon the earth, not far from her mother's house. And she went into the yard. The cock was standing by the well side and cried, "Cock-a-doodle-doo! Your golden girl has come back to you." So she went to her mother, and as she arrived thus covered with gold, she was well received, both by her and her sister. The girl had told her what had happened to her, and as soon as the mother heard how she had come by so much wealth, she was very anxious to obtain the same good luck for the ugly and lazy daughter. She had to seat herself by the well and spin, and in order that her shuttle might be stained with blood, she stuck her hand into a thorn bush and pricked her finger. Then she threw her shuttle into the well and jumped in after it. She came, like the other, to the beautiful meadow and walked along the very same path. When she got to the oven, the bread cried again, "Oh, take me out, or I shall burn. I have been baked for a long time." But the lazy thing answered, "As if I had any wish to make myself dirty," and on she went. Soon she came to the apple tree, which cried, "Oh, shake me, we apples are all ripe." But she answered, "Wouldn't you like that? One of you might fall on my head," and went on. When she came to the mother's house, she was not afraid, for she had already heard of her big teeth, and she offered work to her immediately. The first day she forced herself to work diligently and obeyed Mother when she told her to do anything, for she was thinking of all the gold that she would give her. But on the second day she began to be lazy, and on the third day still more so, and then she would not get up in the morning at all. Nor did she make the mother's bed as she ought, and did not shake it so as to make the feathers fly up. Mother was soon tired of this and gave her notice to leave. She got fired. The lazy girl was willing enough to go, and thought that now the golden rain would come. Mother led her also to the great door, but while she was standing beneath it, instead of the gold, a big kettle full of pitch was emptied over her. "That is the reward for your service," said the mother, and shut the door. So the lazy girl went home, but she was quite covered with pitch. What is pitch? And the cock by the well side, as soon as he saw her, cried, "Again, cock-a-doodle-doo! Your pitchy girls come back to you." But the pitch stuck fast to her and could not be off as long as she lived. That's the end of the story. Oh, gosh. That's crazy. Oh, wow, we've gone through this hour quite quickly. Okay, yep, we can still read this book. Is a black sticky substance. Oh, hello, Chu, and hello, Faulkner. Okay. The next story is called The 7 Ravens. There was once a man who had 7 sons, and still he had no daughter, however much he wished for one. At length his wife again gave him the hope of a child, and when it came into the world, it was a girl. The joy was great, but the child was sickly and small, and had to be privately baptized on account of its weakness. The father sent one of the boys in haste to the spring to fetch water for the baptism. The other 6 went with him, and as each of them wanted to be first to fill it, the jug fell into the well. There they stood and did not know what to do, and none of them dared to go home. As they still did not return, the father grew impatient and said, "They have certainly forgotten it for some game, the wicked boys." He became afraid that the girl would have to die without being baptized, and in his anger cried, "I wish the boys were all turned into ravens." Hardly was the word spoken before he heard a whirring of wings over his head in the air, looked up and saw 7 coal-black ravens flying away. The parents could not recall the curse, and however sad they were at the loss of their 7 sons, they still to some extent comforted themselves with their dear little daughter, who soon grew strong and every day became more beautiful. For a long time she did not know that she had brothers, for her parents were careful not to mention them before her. But one day she accidentally heard some people saying of herself, "That girl was certainly beautiful, but in reality she was to blame for the misfortune which had befallen her 7 brothers." Then she was much troubled, and went to her father and mother, and asked if it was true that she had brothers, and what had become of them. The parents now dared keep the secret no longer, but said that what had befallen her brothers was the will of the heaven, and that her birth was not to blame. She had no rest or peace until she set out secretly. Oh, I skipped something, sorry. But the maiden took it to heart daily and thought she must save her brothers. She had no rest or peace until she set out secretly and went forth into the wide world to find her brothers and set them free, let it cost what it might. She took nothing with her but a little ring belonging to her parents as a keepsake, a loaf of bread against hunger, a little pitcher of water against thirst, and a little chair as a provision against weariness. And now she went continually onwards, far, far to the very end of the world. Then she came to the sun, but it was too hot and terrible, and devoured little children. Hastily she ran away and ran to the moon, but it was far too cold, and also awful and malicious, and when it saw the child, it said, I smell the flesh of men." At this she ran swiftly away and came to the stars, which were kind and good to her, and each of them sat on its own particular little chair. But the morning star arose and gave her the drumstick of a chicken, and said, If you have not that drumstick, you cannot open the glass mountain, and in the glass mountain are your brothers." That's a weird sentence. The maiden took the drumstick, wrapped it carefully in a cloth, and went onwards again until she came to the glass mountain. The door was shut, and she thought she would take out the drumstick, but when she undid the cloth, it was empty, and she had lost the good star's present. What was she to do now? She wished to rescue her brothers, and had no key to the glass mountain. The good sister took a knife, cut off one of her little fingers, put it in the door, and succeeded in opening it. Oh my God! When she had gone inside, a little dwarf came to meet her, who said, "My child, what are you looking for?" "I am looking for my brothers, the 7 ravens," she replied. The dwarf said, "The Lord Ravens are not at home, but if you will wait here until they come, step in." Thereupon the little dwarf carried the raven's dinner in on 7 little plates and in 7 little glasses, and this little sister ate a morsel from each plate, and from each little glass she took a sip, but in the last little glass she dropped the ring which she had brought away with her. Suddenly she heard a whirring of wings and rushing through the air, and then the little dwarf said, "Now the Lord Ravens are flying home." Then they came and wanted to eat and drink, and looked for the little plates and glasses. Then said one after the other, "Who has eaten something from my plate? Who has drunk out of my little glass?" It was a human mouth. And when the seventh came to the bottom of the glass, the ring rolled against his mouth. Then he looked at it and saw that it was a ring belonging to his father and mother, and said, "God grant that our sister may be here, and then we shall be free." When the maiden who was standing behind the door watching heard that wish, she came forth, and at this all the ravens were restored to their human form again. And they embraced and kissed each other and went joyfully home. Okay, that's crazy. She still cut off one of her fingers to let that happen. Oh, goodness me. Yep, that was only 2 pages. Okay, do we have time to read this one? Oh, yes, we do. Okay, this might be the last story we read for today. Got 5 minutes left. Let's see how we go. Little Red Cap. Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, and there was nothing that she would not have given to the child. Once she gave her a little cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else, so she was always called Little Red Cap. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Cap, here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and they will do her good. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly, and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say, 'Good morning,' and don't peep into every corner before you do it." "I will take great care," said Little Red Cap to her mother, and gave her hand on it. The grandmother lived out in the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Red Cap entered the wood, a wolf met her. Red Cap did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Cap," said he. "Thank you kindly, Wolf." "Where do you go so early, Little Red Cap?" "To my grandmother's." "What have you got in your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so poor sick grandmother is to have something good, to make her stronger." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Cap?" "A good quarter of a league farther on in the woods. Her house stands under the 3 large oak trees. The nut trees are just below. You surely must know it," replied Little Red Cap. The wolf thought to himself, "What a tender young creature! What a nice plump mouthful! She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily so as to catch both." So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Red Cap, and then he said, "See, Little Red Cap, how pretty the flowers are about here. Why do you not look around? I believe, too, that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk gravely along as if you were going to school, while everything else out here in the wood is merry." Little Red Cap raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees, and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, "Suppose I take grandmother a fresh nosegay? That's a word. That would please her too. It is so early in the day that I shall still get there in good time." And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers. And whenever she had picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one farther on, and ran after it, and got deeper and deeper into the wood. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" "Little Red Cap," replied the wolf. "She is bringing cake and wine. Open the door." "Lift the latch," called out the grandmother. "I am too weak and cannot get up." The wolf lifted the latch. The door flew open, and without saying a word, he went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. Then he put on her clothes, dressed himself in her cap, laid himself in bed, and drew the curtains. Little Red Cap, however, had been running about picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother, and set out on the way to her. She was surprised to find the cottage door standing open, and when she went into the room, she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today, and at other times I feel like being with grandmother so much." She called out, "Good morning," but received no answer, and so she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay her grandmother, with a cap pulled far over her face and looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have!" "The better to hear you with, my child," was the reply. "But, grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, my dear." "Well, grandmother, what large hands you have." "The better to hug you with." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have." "The better to eat you with." And scarcely had the wolf said this than with one bound he was out of bed and swallowed up Red Cap. When the wolf had appeased his appetite, he lay down in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loud. The hunter was just passing the house, and thought to himself, "How is the old woman snoring? I must see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw that the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find you here, you old sinner?" said he. "I have long sought you." Then, just as he was going to fire at him, it occurred to him that the wolf might have devoured the grandmother, and that she might still be saved. So he did not fire, but took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. When he made 2 snips, he saw the little Red Cap shining, and then he made 2 snips more, and the little girl sprang out crying, "Ah, how frightened I have been! How dark it was inside the wolf!" And after that the aged grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Red Cap, however, quickly fetched great stones with which they filled the wolf's body, and when he awoke, he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy that he fell down at once and fell dead. Then all 3 were delighted. The hunter drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine which Red Cap had brought, and revived. But Red Cap thought to herself, "As long as I live, I will never by myself leave the path, to run into the wood when my mother had forbidden me to do so." It is also related that once when Red Cap again taking cakes to the old grandmother, another wolf spoke to her and tried to entice her from the path. Red Cap, however, was on her guard and went straight forward on her way and told her grandmother that she had met the wolf, and that he had said good morning to her, but with such a wicked look in his eyes, that if they had not been on the public road, she was certain he would have eaten her up. "Well," said the grandmother, "we will shut the door that he may not come in." Soon afterwards the wolf knocked and cried, "Open the door, grandmother. I am little Red Cap, and I am fetching you some cakes." But they did not speak or open the door, so the greybeard stole twice or thrice around the house, and at last jumped on the roof, intending to wait until Red Cap went home in the evening, and then to steal after her and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother saw what was in his thoughts. In front of the house was a great stone trough. So she said to the child, "Take the pail, Red Cap. I made some sausages yesterday, so carry the water in, which I boiled them to the trough." I don't know how to pronounce it. Trough. Red Cap hurried carried until the great trough was quite full. Then the smell of the sausages reached the wolf, and he sniffed and peeped down. And at last stretched out his neck so far that he could no longer keep his footing, and began to slip, and slipped down from the roof straight into the great TROUGH, and drowned. But Redcap went joyously home and never did anything to harm anyone. And that's the end of the story. So, yeah, so originally it was called The Little Red Cap. And then I guess they changed it to Little Red Riding Hood. Well, that's it. We've read 98 pages so far since the start of this book.